The H3 project is about gathering the evidence we need to improve the health and sustainability of our food systems. H3 stands for healthy soil, healthy food, healthy people. And it's the links between those parts of the food system that are the key to genuinely transformative change.
This farm is part of the Southern Farming Cluster, which is working together with the H3 project to test the effects of implementing regenerative agriculture at a landscape scale. When we think of regenerative agriculture, we think of 5 key principles: maximising crop diversity, minimising disturbance to the soil, maintaining living roots year-round, keeping the soil covered, and integrating livestock. These principles translate to practices like cover crops and grazing with sheep and cattle and incorporating residues into the crop before drilling.
We're now concentrating more on cover crops with a nutritional value to support the livestock. So we're choosing mixtures that have maybe some brassica, some turnips and things in them, so that there are many different benefits that this crop will bring. We're getting a rooting structure that will help with the cultivations that are needed in the spring. We're capturing nitrogen for the following crops, so hopefully this will reduce our dependence on as many artificial inputs, maybe lowering our cost of production.
Today, researchers are conducting sampling to test for the impacts of regenerative agriculture on biodiversity. These yellow sticky traps are to catch aphid pests, and we also have pan traps to catch natural enemies such as parasitoid wasps, which are also on these sticky traps. And we have pitfall traps, which are dug into the ground to catch spiders and beetles. So regenerative practices are expected to improve insect biodiversity, and we expect to find more predators such as spiders and beetles and less aphid pests on regenerative fields. So far, we've found a greater abundance of birds on regenerative farms, with a particular trend for increasing farmland specialist species. We've also found that there's 70% greater earthworm abundance and 60% better soil aggregation on regenerative fields. And together, these indicate healthier, better functioning soils.
In order to save our soils, we need to give them the time to recover. But if we do that, we need to grow our food somewhere. And that's where hydroponics comes in.
Hydroponic growing forms an important part of UK agriculture. However, unfortunately, there are some aspects where the sustainability could be improved. For example, the use of pesticides and the growth substrate used for growing the plants. In this trial, we're growing tomatoes in a commercial-like environment to explore the impact of the novel technologies, specifically the synthetic microbial communities, on plant performance and early growth, the impact of pollinators in a tomato environment, that would be bumblebees that are introduced into the greenhouse, and then also looking at the impact on fruit yield and fruit quality, whether that be the properties that are important for taste, but also for long-term storage, and looking at the impact on post-harvest disease resistance, something that's key if you're going to store tomatoes long-term. Following the successful completion of this trial, we hope to test the novel technologies with other crops which are grown hydroponically in the UK, such as cucumbers, peppers, and leafy greens. In the long term, we hope that these novel technologies will contribute to a sustainable hydroponic agriculture here in the UK.
We're at Alcal, which is a dairy farm 5 miles away from Sheffield city centre, and we're here because we work very closely with the innovative farm manager here, Eddie Andrew.
The H3 project has given us the opportunity to take an unused piece of land on the farm and be growing crops in it in an innovative way.
We've been building low input hydroponic systems with a view of modelling how low we can go in terms of inputs and how much yield we can get out of these systems. The idea of that is to model whether or not we could supplement a farmer's income if they've decided to use regenerative agricultural practices and need to leave land lay, or they have sections of their land which are currently unused, like this one here. In our preliminary trials, we've grown 300 kilograms of leafy greens, and they've used somewhere in the vicinity of 13 kilowatt hours per kilogram to produce, which is about 30% of that you see in vertical agricultural systems and your high-tech systems, and that's because they rely on auxiliary heat and light, which is very energy expensive. Going forward, we need to model these systems over the winter and see what crops grow best and what temperatures we can get away with growing them in.
The hope for the future of the project would be to use the waste slurry on the farm, the nutrients and everything from it, to have more of a circular effect on the farm. And it will also give the opportunity for people to come and have a look at different ways of growing. So it's a really exciting project to be part of.
Our research also raises questions in terms of who is responsible for food system change. Is it government, is it business, or is it us as consumers? Whatever we do in terms of scientific advances, technological change, or policy interventions, we need to remember that it must be affordable, acceptable, and culturally appropriate for consumers.
So we're here at Foodworks, which is a great example of a community initiative where they're actually taking surplus food and cooking that food. And the great thing about that is it's giving people an opportunity to try foods that they perhaps wouldn't cook at home with ingredients that they might be less familiar with.
Foodworks is a social enterprise, and our aim is to save all the food we can, so nothing is going to waste in our city. It's food which you can afford, it's nutrition and full of fibre.
What we do know in the UK is that most people don't achieve the recommended fibre intake. They don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, starchy carbohydrates and other sources of fibre. Very often the dietary advice we give to people is don't eat this, don't eat that. And the thing about fibre is it's a positive message. We're saying please eat more fibre. It's really good for health, it's good for satiety, it's good for blood glucose regulation, and it has a positive benefit for the prevention of cardiovascular diseases and type 2 diabetes. So we're working with community organisations like Foodworks to try to increase fibre by developing recipes that people can try here, but then they can take the ingredients home and cook them themselves.
The H3 programme providing evidence-based research is critical for companies who can then use that and put it into real-life settings to ensure that we continue to increase the fibre content of the nation's diet.
Something we're also doing is working with the Food and Drink Federation and all of their member companies who are involved in Action on Fibre to help them test the reformulated foods that they've developed with higher fibre levels in communities, in schools, etc. As an example, we're working with Jacksons of Yorkshire and we're taking some of their really high quality, high fibre breads into schools and getting the kids to taste test them. And what you find is that the children like those breads and they're willing to try them if you do it in the right way and in the right environment.
At H3, we are working to provide robust evidence at all scales, from lab through to the greenhouse and into the farm. Working with our partners, we have a real chance of system-wide change to achieve healthier, more sustainable food systems, fit for the future and available to all.